When was the last time you were bored for more than a minute and didn't reach for your phone? Really?
And get off my lawn.
Hi, thanks for coming by. I'm CJ and this is Geezer Gab. Before we get started, the algorithm likes it when you like and subscribe, especially for newer channels. So go ahead, you know the drill by now. Today we're talking about boredom, specifically how my generation, boomers, accidentally found out that dealing with boredom was a kind of superpower, and why that might matter to you. So let's set the scene. When I was a kid, we're talking mid to late 60s, early 70s, boredom wasn't just common, it was built into daily life. Long car rides with nothing but scenery and AM radio, controlled by dad. Waiting rooms where the only entertainment were a stack of 6-month-old Reader's Digest magazines. Summer afternoons where your parents would literally say, go outside and find something to do. And if you were inside with the TV, the one and only TV, if there was nothing on, there was nothing on. 3 networks, maybe. If you were lucky, maybe National Educational Television, which became PBS in 1970. If you didn't like what was playing, i.e., what dad wanted to watch, tough. You sat there, or you read, or did homework, or just let your imagination start wandering. There was no scrolling, no notifications, no TikTok, no YouTube, no games in your pocket. If you were stuck somewhere, a bus stop, the DMV, your grandma's kitchen while the adults talked, you were just, well, stuck, and you had to deal with it. Back when I was a little kid in the 60s, my hometown was Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. No, really. It was a small town with a population between 4 and 5,000, mostly desert, with summer month temperatures around 96 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 Celsius. Needless to say, in summer, the days were hot and often boring. But even on hot days, I was expected to be outside and out from underfoot. Being out from underfoot was a big thing back then with adults. So what do? You explored. Being that there weren't many people around to speak of, a little kid wandering around a small town wasn't that big of a deal, especially if you didn't get caught. So in summer, the big activity was finding shade. You got thirsty, you drank from a garden hose. You let it run for a bit to get the cool water and wash away some of the garden hose taste out first. In between, you could catch horned toads, lizards, snakes, whatever happened to present itself. Mostly, though, you just sat in the shade trying not to wilt. There were clouds, you would hone your pareidolia and try to see shapes. And you thought about stuff. Later in the 60s, when I lived in the Los Angeles area, the same sort of rules applied, except there were more kids around and we had bikes. We'd often gather at the cool mom's house and sit around outside, being bored, talking about stuff, or playing football in the street, or maybe some other game. We found our own fun. Basically, you cultivated resourcefulness, sparked imaginative thinking, honed social interactions, and built self-reliance. I mean, there really wasn't anything else to do. And this wasn't unique to me. It was just how it was. If you were bored, you made up games, or you built forts out of cardboard boxes or scrap wood. You took apart old radios or clocks just to see how they worked. You read, you doodled, you wrote terrible poetry, you played pretend, entire worlds, characters, storylines, all in your head or with friends or siblings. We didn't call it creativity. We didn't call it problem solving. We just called it killing time. Who knew that we were actually rehearsing for the future? Boredom was the trigger, and our brains did the rest. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, nor do I play one on TV, but there's actually some science behind this. Your brain has what's called a default mode network, or DMN for short. It's a set of brain regions that light up when you're not focused on a specific task, like when you're daydreaming or when you're letting your mind wander, when you're just spacing out. And it turns out that's when a lot of interesting stuff happens. The DMN is involved in connecting ideas that weren't obviously related, thinking about the past and imagining the future, processing emotions, consolidating memories, creative problem solving. In other words, your brain's background mode is actually doing work. But here's the catch. The DMN only kicks in when you give it space. That means when you're not constantly feeding your brain with new stimuli like scrolling or swiping or clicking or watching, your mind gets a chance to wander. And that wandering, that's where a lot of creativity and insight comes from, in the background. Boredom, it turns out, isn't just empty, wasted time. It's a doorway. This isn't mystical, it's measurable brain activity. But that doesn't mean it isn't the kind of magic. So let's look at how things are today. Now, I want to be here. I'm not here to rant about phones. I use a phone. Probably not as much as most, but I do use one. I love having a computer with me for when I need it. But the reality is, we live in an era of micro-stimulation. Waiting in line, phone out. Riding the bus, scrolling. Commercial break, TikTok. 15 seconds of silence, notifications. Every tiny gap gets filled. That's how the system has evolved. It doesn't care if you chose for it to be that way or not. And again, no judgment, I get it. Boredom is inconvenient and can feel uncomfortable, just like it was back in the way back. But here's the difference. My generation got used to boredom. We didn't have a choice with that either. We learned to tolerate it. We learned to use it. Today's generations, especially younger folks, often don't get that chance. They haven't had that training. Because in today's world, the moment boredom starts to creep in, there's an instant escape hatch. And that means the default mode network doesn't get triggered as often. Your brain doesn't get as much time to wander, to connect dots, to process, to create. You're always on. And that has consequences. Now, to be clear, we didn't love being bored either. We weren't going around sitting, on our chaise longue going, Mon Dieu, this ennui is so enriching. No, we were mostly just bored. But we also learned to deal with it. It wasn't scary. It wasn't dangerous. It was just there. And after a while, that restlessness would turn into curiosity or tinkering or imaginative flights of fancy. Or sometimes we just went to sleep. Sometimes boredom pushed us to start things, a project, a hobby, a weird experiment in the garage, maybe even cracking open a book and studying on our own, or a social movement, or a business. That's what I mean by leveraging it. We didn't plan it, we didn't optimize for it, but it happened anyway, and we got good at it. So If I could talk to my 16-year-old self in today's world, I'd say, don't try to fill every gap with noise. Let your mind be offline sometimes. Maybe you get bored, but boredom isn't suffering. It's a signal that your brain is ready to do something interesting if you give it the space. You don't have to live like it's 1975. You don't have to throw your phone in a lake or go off grid or any of that. But you do have to step away from it, at least for a while. Don't pick up the phone or game controller out of habit. Wait until when you intend to be on your phone or play a game. Try getting bored on purpose once in a while. Let the signal play. See what happens. And for everyone else, old me included, this is what I say. When you're able, I encourage everyone, young through old, to just look up every once in a while and sense the world. Sights, sounds, smells, tastes, textures. It's not virtual, it's tangible. A lot of pretty cool things have come from the simple act of just noticing and experiencing the world around you. And what do you do with it? Anything. Nothing. It doesn't matter. You aren't going to be graded or judged for living inside your own consciousness for a few minutes, or even a few more. Though if you go on for a couple of days, at least change your underwear every now and then. Just saying. Maybe, just maybe, you'll find that getting bored is a great opportunity to be more you. No pressure, no expectations. Of course, sometimes you might have a thought so original that it could change the world. I wouldn't lay odds on it, but it's happened before. Einstein daydreamed his way into relativity. Lin-Manuel Miranda has flat out said the good ideas come when you're bored. Tolkien was bored grading papers and scribbled, "In a hole in the ground where there lived a hobbit." And the rest is history, or fantasy. So keep a tiny notebook or a piece of paper or a notes app handy, because when your brain does start wandering, sometimes it comes up with something worth writing down so you can get back to it. The best part is that when you get used to it, you can be anywhere and still be entertained just with what goes on in your noggin. And that's where the good stuff lives. Do I use my phone? Yeah. Do I binge YouTube? Oh, yeah. But I also enjoy the quiet times still, which many find to be harder to come by the older they get. So grab them when you can, like when you go out to get the mail, like when you're doing chores but don't have earbuds churning out music, or just stopping in front of some flowers and literally smelling the roses. Back in the 80s, pop culture even spelled it out. I mean, Ferris Bueller taught us that life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. I know from experience that some of my best ideas, my clearest thoughts, my most honest reflections come from those moments. The moments when I'm doing nothing, when I'm just bored. So let me ask, when was the last time you were genuinely bored? Not frustrated, not anxious, just bored. What did you do with it? Did you reach for your phone, or did you let your mind wander? Leave a message in the comments. And finally, boredom isn't just wasted time. It can be a creative space, a reflective space, a space where your brain gets to do what it does best: connect, imagine, process, dream. My generation was gifted that by accident. You can choose it on purpose. And who knows? Maybe you'll discover something interesting. And with that, I'm CJ, and thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Oh, and remember, liking is groovy, and subscribing is far out. See you later.